All right, I think we're good. So whenever you want,
All
let's
right.
get it going. I'm hyped.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Shoot Your Shot podcast. This is the bracket edition. You're here with John and Aldo, and the bracket is just a few hours old. Aldo and I watched a selection show together, and we're going to take you through every region, every game, and hopefully come out with a full bracket. Um, Aldo, how was your selection Sunday and the aftermath?
Oh, it was great, John. I'm excited as always. Selection Sunday is one of my favorite days. Even compared to the tournament itself, Selection Sunday is just awesome to see. I know that we talked about it. We thought that the bubble was pretty clear, but then we saw people putting USC out and Syracuse in, and we weren't a fan of that. But luckily, I think they got the right 68 teams in the field. So we'll see. I know some of the seeding, which we can talk about, was a little shady, but I think they got the right 68 teams, which is important. And now the games begin.
Yeah, they do. So I was so excited for this as well. Um, due to some due to going to bed early on Saturday night and a fair amount of intoxication, I woke up at like 5:30 on Sunday in anticipation of this coming out. So I was like a kid on Christmas morning. But I think you really hit it here. I think the 68 teams that are in are the 68 that deserve to get in. There was a it was a really soft bubble because a lot of the conference champs, the lower level, got the automatic bid. We didn't have to deal with Middle Tennessee stayed on the bubble. We had a little bit of debate with Illinois State and the Missouri Valley, but for the most part, it was really four teams for three spots, and I think they got it right.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think they did get it right. Like you said, four teams for three spots. The only one that really could have maybe been in was Syracuse, but they could have been in, they could have been out. ESPN was making a big deal of it, just I think to try and get some attention. But honestly, they had 14 losses. You could have put them in, like I said, but they had 14 losses. They lost to a lot of bad teams. I don't feel bad. Like I said, you want to put them in and over Kansas State. Okay, I'm fine with it. But you want to leave them out. There should be no gripe. Don't lose 14 games throughout the year.
And don't lose by 30 something to St. John's at home.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I mean, what was the stat? They had two wins away from the
Two,
Carrier Dome, right?
yeah, two wins away from the Carrier Dome.
That's absolutely
Like,
ridiculous when you have teams at the lower levels who can't schedule a home game in the non-con. These guys, Syracuse, can't even win two away from their own building.
yeah, and like I said, people had like USC out, and they're like, oh, they only won two top games. Syracuse has like five top wins. Okay, but USC also only lost one bad game all year, and it was on the road at Arizona State. Syracuse, like you said, lost by 30 to St. John's. They lost to UConn, Georgetown, and that was even before like UConn like kind of turned things around a little bit. That was when Georgetown and UConn were terrible. So you want to put them in, okay, but don't make a half-hour segment and have Dickie V crying on TV that Syracuse should have been in. Like, come on.
Yeah,
Just say like get find something better to talk about. Talk about, the Big Ten, which we'll mention the
we'll
seeding of
get, we'll
that.
get there. I know you have some hot Big Ten takes, but I guess so. 69, we can call Syracuse the 69th team, but let's talk about those Final Four in. So in Dayton, along with the 16 seed playoffs, we have Providence against South Carolina and Kansas State against Wake Forest. Like we said, I think those are the right teams. I think Southern Cal
Yeah, you mean
actually.
Southern
Yeah,
Cal, yeah.
sorry, Southern Cal. I'm looking at SC. I think Southern Cal got a little underseeded. I think they deserve to be in with room to spare, but now they'll have to play their way in against Providence. So, just what your takes on those seed lines and then projections on those games.
Yeah, when I filled out my I did a 1 through 68. I didn't bracket it um completely, but I just filled out my 1 through 68. I actually had Kansas State, Wake, and Providence in the last four, so I think those are right. I think USC is a little underseeded. I guess it's because they only have like two top wins, but I'm more of like an eye test guy, and that I mean that's a debate for another day. We want to get to the bracket talk, but I'm someone that thinks use the resumes to get the 68 teams, but then I think you should. I don't think you should necessarily seed solely based on resume because you have these teams. We'll talk about one later in Wichita. Wichita is just a really good team, and now it hurts Kentucky that they're going to have to play them in the second round, or even Dayton that they have to play them in the first round. So
Hmm.
that, I mean, that's a debate for another day. But I think that once you get the 68 teams in the field, I think you should seed them more based on Vegas. Maybe not solely Vegas, but it's got to weigh more heavy the Ken Palms and the stuff because Ken Palm is pretty close to Vegas usually. I just think that that's the way it should be because I think it's fair, like the fairest way to seed teams. Um, and like I said, you're not usually hurting the team that's underseeded, like Wichita. Wichita, I believe, is a 5 or 6 point favorite, and
I think it's
they're
more
the
than that now. I think
yeah,
it's climbing.
yeah, it's climbing, and they're the 10 seed, so that like shouldn't happen because you're hurting the other teams. So, and if they play Kentucky, it's going to be like a 2 point, 3 point game,
Oh,
which
let's save the South region for the
yeah,
South region,
sorry,
man.
yeah,
I know you're hot.
sorry.
I know you're hot on
Sorry.
the
So yeah.
Shockers.
So you're right. So three of those four I think are perfectly seeded actually. USC's a little underseeded. I don't know if we're going into who do you, are we picking
Yeah, let's get
these?
it down to 64.
Yep. So I like USC to beat Pravi,
Hmm.
and I like Wake. They have two NBA players. I think that they roll Kansas State.
I completely agree on those, and that sets it up for the 64 team bracket. So let's jump into the East region.
Who do you like real quick in the 16 games? I know no one really usually picks those, but
Oh,
the
well,
Mount St. Mary's, New Orleans, and NC Central, UC Davis. Who do you like?
I'm not most people. I have a lot of interest in these 16 games. I think Mount St. Mary's takes care of New Orleans. I can
I'm
honestly
with you. I'm
say
with you there.
New Orleans got their name called. I was like, who? And for the guys like us to say who to an AQ is pretty wild. So I don't even know what's going
Yep.
on there.
Yep.
I like the Mount, and I'm gonna dedicate some Midwest conversation time to NC Central, but I think NC Central takes down Davis. Vegas is already going that way. That opened up at a pick 'em. It's already Central -4. So I like Central and the Mount.
Yep. I'm with you with both of those. And yeah, you got to keep me on track today because I've got different rants that are just gonna come. You gotta moderate me today.
I'll do my best until we get to the South region. Apparently, I'm just going to turn
Yeah.
it over. But let's start in the East, where the number one overall seed, Villanova, gets the winner of Mount St. Mary's Mount against New Orleans. Then Wisconsin, Virginia Tech in the 8-9 game. UVA, UNC Wilmington in the 5-12. Florida against East Tennessee State in the 4-13. SMU gets the winner of Providence Southern Cal in the 6-11. Baylor State in the 3-14, South Carolina against Marquette in the 7-10, and then Duke against Troy in the 2-15. So, Aldo, take your pick. Which one of those you want to tackle? Which is the most interesting to you?
I'll tackle. Do you want me to run through my picks real quick, or
Yeah. Run through and then defend yourself
I'll
as I try
yeah,
to
I'll run.
poke it through.
All right, sounds good. So I got in the first game I have Nova over the winner, or I have the Mount. I
Mm-hmm.
have Wisconsin over Virginia Tech, UNCW with the upset over Virginia, Florida beating East Tennessee State. I got SMU over the winner of Provi USC, and I have USC winning that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then SMU beating them. I have Baylor over New Mexico State, Marquette over South Carolina, and Duke over Troy. My favorite pod, and I mentioned this to you previously, my favorite pod in this whole bracket is the 5-12, 4-13 of Virginia, UNC, Wilmington, Florida, and East Tennessee State. I think any of those four, and this might be the only pot of four where I feel this way, I think any of those four can get to the Sweet 16. I think it's two great mid majors, two like very solid power conference teams, but have kind of fallen off a little bit. So I think any of those four can get through. It should be a real interesting pod.
I totally agree. This is a really good set of four teams here. I'm almost identical with you in your first round victories there, except for I have East Tennessee State over Florida. Um, you're right. Florida and Virginia have been tailing off, and East Tennessee State just has some dudes. I mean, we can go into their roster, but they have high major talent in the front line, and then they just have a dude in TJ Cromer who can light it up. So I don't think that TSU is outmatched in that game. If they lose that game, it's because Florida has just played better. I don't think Florida's going to be able to muscle them around, especially with their losses due to injury. So I think that's a really fascinating game. And then on the flip side of that pod, UNC Wilmington, I have UNC Wilmington over UVA as well. I was actually down in Charleston for the Colonial Athletic tournament where I saw UNC William play 3 games in 3 days, and these dudes can ball. Like it's crazy. I think UVA has such a unique style in the way that they play. Slowing it down with that pack line D kind of disrupts some offense. But UNC Wilmington just rolls out, 2 like 6'2" guys, 2 guys who are 6'5", 6'6", and then a 6'8" dude who's actually the defensive player of the year who just picks and rolls and jams. I'm not going to say they don't run a really structured offense, but a lot of their offense results off of their guards just beating folks one-on-one and then shooting threes. So I don't think the pack line is going to disrupt them as much as some of the other schools that really rely on the system. So I think that was actually a pretty good draw for W, and I have both high seeds advancing there.
Yeah, like I said, I have Florida winning, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if East Tennessee State won. I think that, I think it's pretty. I wouldn't be shocked at all if it was the 12-13 matchup to get to the Sweet 16, which would actually be pretty cool. And those are, I mean, it's kind of a shame because those are 2 of the better mid majors, in my opinion, that they kind of put them in the same pod. But it would also be cool if they can somehow match up.
And that would and that would be a repeat. Rematch. UNCW actually beat East Tennessee State earlier in the non-con. So props to both coaches for scheduling that game. So that is kind of a cool wrinkle if they both advance. So I think we really tore apart that pod. But I think a really interesting game here is Wisconsin Virginia Tech, mostly because, like you mentioned in your Wichita rant, Wisconsin being an 8 seed was the 3rd team revealed in the selection show, and that set the tone for what they were going to do with the Big Ten. And here you have Villanova potentially facing a Wisconsin team with like serious firepower and just a really, really veteran dangerous team.
Yeah, we can get into it more later when we talk about some of the other Big Ten teams, but the committee just I was picking seeds out of a hat for the Big Ten. Like all the other power conferences, I thought everybody was actually seeded fairly well, but the Big Ten, they just were all over the place. Don't really understand what they were trying to do there. Wisconsin, I think, I'm not sure what the line is, but they should be a pretty decent favorite over Vodtech. I think it'll actually be a better game than what America thinks it will be. I think everybody's going to write in Wisconsin. I mean, I have Wisconsin, and I think they will win, but I wouldn't really be surprised if Buzz has them ready and they make it a game. But yeah, like you said, it kind of sucks for Nova because assuming Wisconsin does win, like that's a veteran tough team. I know that I've given the Big Ten shit all year, but like you know I didn't think that Wisconsin would be an 8 seed and get the top team in the whole bracket in the second round. Like that's just a bad draw for Nova.
Yeah, it really is. And you're right. I've watched Virginia Tech a whole lot this year. Those guys battle. They are always in close games and they win, or they were winning a majority of them. So I don't think it's as set in stone that we're going to get a Wisconsin Villanova match. I think honestly Virginia Tech is a tough matchup for Villanova as well because they
Hmm.
kind of have the same roster. They play the same sort of style. And you hinted, I mean, no Buzz Williams team gets out toughed. So whoever comes through and gets Villanova in the second round that's going to be a battle. And Villanova really gets tested right off the bat. So unfortunate draw for them, in my opinion, but should make for some exciting games.
Yeah, and just real quick on that usually there's an 8-9 where you're like, oh, everybody likes if you look at like the percentages takes one of the teams because they think they're a huge favorite, and then the other team ends up like blowing them out. And this just kind of has Virginia Tech's not going to blow out Wisconsin, but this just kind of has that feel to me. It's just like everybody's like on Wisconsin. Everyone's saying like, oh, Nova is gonna, they were unlucky and they drew Wisconsin, and then Virginia Tech's gonna win. So that it's just got that feel to me.
Right.
But going forward, so I guess to we'll do the finish out the rest of the East. So I have Nova, Wisconsin. I have Nova moving on to the Sweet 16.
Hmm.
I have UNCW versus Florida, and I have UNCW going to the Sweet 16.
Ooh.
That's my upset pick for the East, and you'll see more later. I have SMU facing Baylor. I have Baylor going through there. I think that I love SMU. I honestly hope that they win that game, but I think that Baylor could give them trouble with their size. I have Marquette playing Duke. Woj going against K. That should be real interesting. I have Duke moving on. And then I guess going forward, so I have Nova UNCW. I think Nova, UNCW, I hope that they can make that run, but Nova would just be too much for them. And then I have Baylor beating Duke, and I know that a lot of people are going to think that I'm crazy. And fair warning, this bracket and the way that I fill out all brackets, I just like to have a little fun with it. It's half based on what I think is going to happen, half based on what I want to happen. And then, I do enter it in some pools and stuff. So I try to be a little different. I don't ever like to go chalk. So I like to throw in some stuff there. So I have Baylor beating Duke, and then I have Baylor beating Nova to go to the Final Four. So that's the rest. That's the rest of my East. What do you got in the rest of the East there?
So the bottom half of the East, I have SMU advancing and playing Baylor, and I have Marquette advancing playing Duke. From there, I mean, each one of these games is a real toss up. I do match you though. I have Baylor beating SMU, and I have Duke beating Marquette. From there, I have Duke over Baylor. I hear you with the size, and I said earlier this year that Baylor has a better starting five than Kansas, so that's how high I am on Baylor. I mean, they have the bigs that are going to give teams fits, specifically SMU and Duke. But I think Duke, I'm kind of drinking the Kool Aid a little bit here on what they've been able to do. Not because they've won 4 games in 4 days, like that's impressive and all. Um, but simply they have all the pieces and they're coming together, and that's kind of scary for the rest of the region here. So I have Duke over Baylor, and then I have that monster showdown, which I'm sure everyone in the TV world is anticipating and hoping for: Villanova against Duke at Madison Square Garden. I have Duke winning that, so I have Duke coming out of this region now. But one thing that I wanted to mention here is uh, the bigs. There aren't many bigs in this region, but Motley and Hap could could tear this region up because your top teams are Villanova, Duke, and then Florida, who lost their big, UVA, who has Jack Salt, who is kind of a robot down there, and then SMU, who doesn't even have a dude over 6'7" or 6'8". So I mean, if those 40 minutes go the Bigs' ways, you're looking at Baylor and Wisconsin being able to do some damage.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Don't get me wrong. Duke is right now well, they've always been probably the most talented team in the country, maybe besides UCLA. But they look awesome. Wouldn't be shocked at all if they went to the Final Four or even won it all. But that's kind of what I was thinking with Baylor. I was like, if there was any region that they were in that they could make a run, I actually think it's this one
Right.
because they don't have a Gonzaga in Arizona, a UNC where they're just gonna, if they match up big for big, like their guards aren't that great, I wouldn't take Baylor. But I think that they can, possibly give Duke some trouble on the glass. Clearly, they can give SMU a little trouble. So we'll see. I mean, is it likely to happen? No, but I think if there's any region that they could have actually made a run, I think that they're in the right one.
I agree. I agree. I think that this region sets up pretty nicely for them. Before we move on to another region, I just want to mention this potential second round matchup of Marquette against Duke. There are a lot of underlying storylines there with kind of sensei versus student. This Marquette team can't stop anybody, but they know it, and they're just going to try to outscore you. So this could be an offensive shootout, and Marquette could take Duke down. In all seriousness, Marquette I think is the best 3-point shooting team in the country. So if for 40 minutes they're hot from beyond the arc. Duke could be in a little bit of trouble.
Yep, I'm with you 100%. If you're a Duke hater, you definitely want Marquette to win that first game. Two completely different styles in South Carolina and Marquette, but honestly, if South Carolina beats Marquette, I don't think that they can score with Duke. But like you said, Marquette can get hot. I mean, they beat Nova this year. They can score with anybody. They can't defend, but Duke also isn't the best defensive team. So if yeah, like you said, if Marquette gets hot, anything can happen. But I think it's definitely a better shot that Marquette would take down Duke in the second round than South Carolina.
Yeah. So anything else on the East before we move on to the South? Or sorry, the
Mm,
West.
nope, that's pretty much everything I got.
All right.
Hopefully we see a UNCW or East Tennessee State in that Sweet 16. That would be cool.
That's what I'm pulling for. We have different ones, but we're both hoping for it. So in the East, we kind of mentioned that it's pretty wide open. I think in the West, I have to stop myself from coughing because I just have so much chalk. Um, Running through the matchups, Gonzaga got the 1 seed playing South Dakota State. You have Northwestern with Vanderbilt in the 8-9, Notre Dame Princeton in the 5-12, West Virginia Bucknell in the 4-13, Maryland Xavier in the 6-11. Florida State versus Florida Gulf Coast in the 3-14, St. Mary's against VCU in the 7-10, and Arizona North Dakota in the 2-15. Aldo, why don't you run through your first picks there, those first
Yep,
rounds?
yep. So I have the Zags over South Dakota State. I've got the first time NCAA tournament competitors over Vandy. I've got Notre Dame over Princeton. A lot of people are high on Princeton. I'm huge on mid majors, don't get me wrong. But I think Princeton's a little overrated. I think it has something to do with just the Ivy recently has done very well in the tournament. And I just don't think that this Princeton team is as good as, say, the Harvard team a few years ago or even Yale last year. So I think Notre Dame actually I think they run them out the gym. I have West Virginia over Bucknell. My one upset in this first round, I have Xavier over Maryland. I have Florida State over Florida Gulf Coast, although watch out. I think Florida State wins, but Florida Gulf Coast, I believe, is a little underseeded as a 14, so they have some talent. They can definitely give Florida State a run. I have St. Mary's over VCU, and I have Arizona over North Dakota.
Got it, got it. I'm pretty similar here. I do agree with the seating. When this bracket came out, we had a discussion where I think Bucknell would have been better suited as the 14 here, and Florida Gulf Coast is the 13. That just seems a little bit more appropriate based on those teams' performance and would offer better matchups because I think um, at least the style that West Virginia plays has kind of proved that they're not terribly tournament ready, and maybe a team like Florida Gulf Coast who has some athletes could handle them. But I again have Gonzaga. I have Northwestern over Vandy, Notre Dame, West Virginia. So straight at the top. I have Xavier over Maryland, Florida State over Florida Gulf Coast. I actually have VCU taking down St. Mary's and then Arizona there. So state your case for St. Mary's as we differ there.
I actually think they're a little underrated. I think their seed is close to right. I probably would have put them as like a 6 seed, so a seven's not like too far off. I think that they're one of the better teams in the country, honestly. I just think Gonzaga was a bad matchup for them, and everyone's like, oh, they got destroyed by Gonzaga 3 times. Well, Gonzaga is also probably one of the best 2, 3 teams in the country. So I can't really fault them for that. I know that they don't have a lot of wins on their resume, which, I completely understand, but I've seen them play a bunch. I think that they're really good. They have the big Jock Lockdale down low. That's actually, I think, one of the better uh, player versus player matchups in the first round is Lockdale versus Mo Alley Cox
Mm-hmm.
should be really good. It's actually one of my more favorite just first round games in general. So yeah, I think St. Mary's comes out of there. I think they can give Zona a run. I think Zona, to me, though, lines up better with the Zags, so I think that they get through there. But yeah, I think St. Mary's gets through VCU. Wouldn't be surprised if VCU won, but I think that St. Mary's can get through there.
Yeah, I think. I mean, St. Mary's is definitely a good team. They're old. I think they're all back from last year. But
Yep,
but there
yep.
there just isn't much to there isn't much about their resume that tells you anything. I mean, they lost to Gonzaga 3 times, and I agree, Gonzaga's a bad match. kind of how Vanderbilt beat Florida 3 times. Like some teams
Right.
just don't match up well, and you're going to lose, 3 out of 3. The other games on their schedule, St. Mary's went to Dayton, another A10 team, on the road and squeaked out a victory. So I know that on the road at Dayton is a tough place to play, but if that's the barometer I'm getting from St. Mary's, like, hey, they're maybe a slice above the best team in the A10, and VCU is one of the best teams in the A10. VCU is also an older team. I think the tempo here is really interesting. St. Mary's going to try to slow it down. VCU can really pick it up, and I think that VCU is just going to be going at them for the entire game, where maybe the last 8 minutes or so VCU is able to break through. So really, really good game. I think all the 7-10s are exciting, but I think VCU gets the edge there in an interesting one. And then that sets up some interesting second rounders. So why don't you take us all the way through the West region?
Yep. So I have the Zags against Northwestern. I think that Northwestern, no matter who they're playing now, they're playing Gonzaga in the second round. But I always told myself they're gonna be so hyped for their first game. They're gonna win that first one and then just get destroyed in the second one. And I think that it will work out that way because they're playing Gonzaga. So I have Gonzaga. I have Notre Dame beating West Virginia. I'm not a huge fan of West Virginia's style come tourney time, and I think that Mike Bray always has Notre Dame playing well.
And they had the
I,
guards to handle that.
yep, exactly. Yep. So I have Notre Dame there. I have Florida State beating Xavier. I just think that they're better, honestly. I think no matter who wins that Maryland Xavier game, as long as Florida State can get past the coast, I think they get to the Sweet 16. And then, like I said earlier, I think that Zona kind of lines up their team fairly similar to Gonzaga, actually. So I think that they can get by St. Mary's. I think it will be a decent game, but I think they get by. And then for the Elite Eight into the Final Four, I have Gonzaga beating Notre Dame, and I have Arizona beating Florida State for the rematch early in this year. Gonzaga played Arizona and they won without Alonzo Trier, and I have them actually winning again and getting to the Final Four.
I'm speechless because I almost have nothing else to add. We are once again identical down the stretch here. Um, Gonzaga over Notre Dame for me, FSU over Arizona. One thing I will say is a lot of people are harping on that rematch of Gonzaga Arizona. Right, saying that Gonzaga won without when Zona didn't have Trier, and there were some other injuries on that team. I watched that game. That game wasn't close. I know it ended as a 7-point game, but Gonzaga was up 16 with a couple minutes left, and then Deonte Burton just decided to go off and try to carry the team back. I think I really hope that Gonzaga takes care of business. I think they have a wonderful path. I mean, Northwestern's a nice story, but they don't match up with Gonzaga. Notre Dame scares me a little bit because Bray is kind of figured it out and has gone to back-to-back Elite Eights.
And also BYU showed that they can beat them by just stroking it from
Right.
deep, and that's kind of what Notre Dame does. So yeah, I'm with you. That is a little bit of a scary matchup.
Yeah, I honestly think that's the toughest matchup for them because Gonzaga, believe it or not, can go toe-to-toe with the Pac-12 roster. I mean, they can throw out, they can go big, they can go small. They can have, I think it was Billis who said they can have Tilly, Karnowski, and Williams on their front line, which is 7'1", 6'10", 6'8", and then go Matthews and Goss, who are 2 Pac-12 transfers. So, I mean, they're not going to be outmatched, and this is a really, really sound offensive and defensive team. So I think Gonzaga got a really, really good pull. I'm actually more nervous for a potential matchup against Notre Dame than I am against anyone else. But that being said, that'll be one step away for Sean Miller to get to his first Final Four in Phoenix, which would be huge. So if it does boil down to Gonzaga, Arizona, that is going to be a blockbuster and a really, really, really high intensity game.
Yep. And then I would just say, just watch out for Florida State. They are the team I'm most scared of, and the team that I would not be surprised if they lost by 20 in the first round. I just have had, I have a little financial interest in them from the beginning of the year, and I still just cannot put my finger on it. They are the all, as John Rothstein would say, they're the all airport team. They get off the plane. They literally look like an NBA team. They're freaking huge. They're athletic.
They have NBA players on that team
They
too.
have NBA players. Yeah, exactly, and they're deep. And then some nights they want to lose by 20 to Pitt. I don't get it. So I mean they definitely have the talent
Mhm.
to make a run in this bracket. They have the size to match up with both Arizona and Gonzaga. So it'll be interesting if they come to play every night. But if they do, they definitely have the talent and the size to match up with both of those teams. So hopefully they play well and we can get some good games with between them, Zona and Gonzaga.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the West is a really interesting region, but like we kind of discussed here, it could get pretty chalky. So let's bounce it off to the South region. I know you've been itching to get to this region since the beginning of the pod. So in the South, North Carolina got the 1 seed. They'll play against Texas Southern, Arkansas against Seton Hall in the 8-9, Minnesota against Middle Tennessee State, giddy up in the 5-12. Butler against Winthrop in the 4-13. Cincinnati gets the winner of Wake K-State in the 6-11. UCLA versus Kent State in the 3-14. Dayton Wichita in the 7-10. And then Kentucky versus Northern Kentucky in the 2-15. So who are your first round wins there?
I have first off, real quick. So this region is real interesting because you have the top three seeds all kind of played one another.
Yep.
So if everything holds serve, you're gonna get a UCLA Kentucky rematch, possibly, and a Kentucky UNC rematch, which we were actually at that game in Vegas. Those are two of probably the I don't know, 3 or 4 best games all year. So it's just real interesting how they're all in the same bracket. I mean, I think it's fair. I think all the brackets are pretty even far as talent for like the top 4 seeds. It's just interesting how those three are all there. But yeah, to run through real quick, I have UNC beating Texas Southern, no 16-1 there. I have Seton Hall beating Arkansas. I have the Middle Tennessee State Blue Raiders beating Minnesota. Hopefully they can make a run. Love giddy up. They've got not only him, Ja'Cory Williams, I think one
Mm-hmm.
player of the year, and everybody remembers Upshaw last year from the tournament. Their other big, real athletic. So they got some dudes. They're 30-4. So I mean, they know how to win. They're a really good team. I think that they are definitely. I'll get into this more when I talk about Wichita, but I think that they're almost more criminally underseeded than Wichita was. The next game I have Butler over Winthrop. Now this next game, I have Wake over Cincinnati, but if Kansas State wins, depending when we drop this, either tonight or tomorrow night. If Kansas State wins, I'm going to change that because I don't think that they beat Cincinnati. So I have hopefully Wake wins, and I have Wake
But
beating
does it really matter?
Cincinnati.
I mean, look who they're getting.
Yeah, they're getting the UCLA Bruins. I think that they will beat Kent State by 73. So whatever that
That's the
line
line.
is,
Yeah, 72.5.
yeah, I would still take the over. I have Dayton beating Wichita. And then I have the battle of the Kentuckies of regular Kentucky and Northern Kentucky. I have regular Kentucky going through.
Got it. Yeah, just non-directional Kentucky.
Yeah.
I want to get to my picks, but I think there are two really interesting topics that I know you have some takes on here. One, Dayton, Wichita. I want you to revisit that. And secondarily, this is talk about this 5-12 seeding because Wisconsin is an 8 and Minnesota is a 5.
Yeah. So
What's like? Yeah, I mean,
so
we got to hash this out.
yep. So this region pretty much sets up the whole seeding issue. I had like I said, they got the right 68 teams in. I think they did a fairly good job seeding most of the conferences, but the Big Ten is a mess, and I think they really messed up. They did mess up Wichita, which everybody's talking about, but I think they really messed up Middle Tennessee State. So we'll talk about the Big Ten first, real quick. So you have Purdue, which we didn't get to that region yet, but Purdue's the 4. Then you have Minnesota is a 5, and then the rest of them, or I'm sorry, Michigan is a 7, and then the rest of them are like 8s and 9s.
Right.
And
No
and
double digit.
sorry,
No double
and
digit Big
Maryland
Tens.
exactly, and Maryland is a 6. So this is the issue I have. I have no problem with Purdue as a 4. I thought that Wisconsin would be like a 5 or a 6.
Hmm.
And I wouldn't have had any problem if they were an 8, but you put Minnesota and Maryland as a 5 and a 6, and Wisconsin the 8 is just ridiculous. Now, Minnesota has a good resume. I actually like this Minnesota team. I thought that they would actually be ranked higher, which they were, than a lot of people thought coming in. But I didn't think that they were going to be a 5 and Wisconsin was going to be 3 seats lower than them. Eh, eh, and the worst one to me is this Maryland team. Maryland is a 6. They put Wisconsin as an 8 because they clearly haven't beaten anybody. Neither has Maryland, and they're like they lost in I think their first game in the Big Ten tournament. Wisconsin got to the championship game. I just don't understand that at all. So, like I said before, you can give your opinion, but I think the Big Ten, I don't know what they were doing. The two
Yeah.
other,
Oh, can I get in on the Big Ten for a
yeah,
second?
yeah, yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
so yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you. The entire Big Ten is a head scratcher. I mean, when Wisconsin came out as the 8 right off the bat, I didn't know what that meant for the other Big Ten. I was like, is somebody not going to make it? I
Right,
mean, if
exactly.
that's
I
what
was with
like,
you. I thought Michigan State was like, oh, like
yeah,
I would be worried.
right. I mean, that's what I was thinking. So Wisconsin coming in at an 8, and I think you have to give some type of value to regular season seeding in these multi-bid conferences. Like, it essentially looks like they cherry picked the Big Ten and just decided, kind of made up their own opinions on these seedings here. I mean, if you have Wisconsin at an 8, that is, aside from Purdue, like everyone else has to be on that level. Minnesota at a 5. I do agree they have, were positioned to be the highest ranked Big Ten team outside those big ones. But Maryland as a 6, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
really,
Maryland. It's Maryland
yeah,
at the 6 that
yeah.
really, really gets me because at least,
Maryland at the
yeah,
6.
at least
It,
Minnesota has the resume. Maryland just doesn't.
yeah, it's super bizarre what they did there. And then they have Northwestern on the same line as Wisconsin. Like, I don't know. I don't know where this came from, and we probably should have seen it coming based on what the committee told us in that unveiling of the top 4 seeds when they didn't have any of the Big Ten teams in the top 20 there, or top 16. So it's really odd. And what I look for out of the committee is, last year it was, are the at-large, are the mid-majors getting in, or are the power conferences getting in? And all the power conferences got in except for Wichita. So I'm just looking for consistency. This year it was like, okay, we have our field of 68. Now let's treat all these teams the same. And I think they did that, except for the Big Ten, where these seeds they just don't make any sense. And I don't know if there's true punishments like we're talking about in these 7-10s, where like Dayton and Kentucky got screwed with Wichita. But I actually think, like Xavier actually got a gift with this Maryland seed. So it's real goofy going through there, but it sets up nicely with this Middle Tennessee State game.
Yeah, and then just real quick, so everybody was on this. Wichita is very underseeded. I agree. I personally would have them a little higher just because I think they're 8th in KenPom now. I do not think you should solely go on KenPom or, like I was saying, solely go on Vegas. But I think you do have to take that into account. You have the 8th best team or whatever Vegas has them. Like I think they were like top 10 or 12 team in the country as a 10 seed. Like that is not fair. Split the difference. If Vegas and KenPom want them as a 2-3 seed and the resume says they should be like a 10, put them at a 6 seed. It kind of avoid, like, no one would have really had too much of a problem if they were a 6 seed. That's just my take with Wichita. But my biggest problem, like I said, is with Middle Tennessee State. They're a 12 seed. They have the same exact record as Wichita, and they have not gotten talked about once on any of the networks about being ridiculously underseeded. If you look at the committee's S curve or whatever you want to call it, they're 1-68. They would have not made the tournament if they lost in their championship game, which is ridiculous. They are 30-4. Like I said, same exact record as Wichita. They're now granted their losses are worse than Wichita's losses, but they beat teams. They beat a lot more teams than Wichita beat.
Mm-hmm.
And they're 30-4, and everybody knows that they're good enough to get in the tournament. The fact that they're a 12, they should be on the 10 line where Wichita's at. That's just mind-boggling to me, and it's also mind-boggling, like I said, that they wouldn't have been in the tournament had they lost.
Yeah,
It's just crazy. So,
yeah. Those two are really fascinating. I agree with you on Middle Tennessee State. I mean, they actually do have they had better wins than Wichita. They beat UNCW and Vanderbilt, so they got two tournament victories. Coming into the 12
mhm.
seed is a little disrespectful. I don't know if it's overly disrespectful, but I do think they should have been higher than a 12. I'm torn on Wichita here because although any semi-casual fan knows that Wichita State is a good team, Wichita is the one mid-major that's been able to get a brand boost. You know, they're the team that got in last year. They're the team that's now being brought up as a 10 seed. Question for you, Aldo: how many tournament teams did Wichita State beat this year?
uh, I would guess
Zero.
I was going to say, I
Zero.
guess since their only good wins Illinois State, I would say
Right.
none.
Right. So they have a great win-loss record. They lost to all the good teams they played. They smashed Illinois State when Illinois State didn't have their best player. Sure, they're eighth in KenPom, but if you can't just hit your wagon to the numbers. I don't think Wichita State should be a 10, but if you're going to say, hey, here's what they did throughout the course of the year, yeah, I mean, they kind of got it right with Wichita. I mean, I know it's unfair for Dayton and Northern and Kentucky because Wichita has the capability to get to the Final Four, but uh, they didn't get the job done. They tried, they scheduled well, they went to Battle for Atlantis, but they lost all those games, and in the end, you got to win the games. They won a lot of Missouri Valley cupcakes.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm really torn on it, and I do understand what you're saying that they get the benefit of the doubt because they're Wichita over these other, and that's why like I wanted to bring up Middle Tennessee State because I think they're in a very similar scenario as Wichita, and they don't even get mentioned, and they got an even like I said an even lower seed and wouldn't have even been in the tournament. So, you know, I'm not like I said. I think they should have spent way more time talking about Middle Tennessee State over Wichita. I think they were underseeded, but yeah, but that's just because also my opinion. Like I said, I think that you should see teams based a little more on how good they are once you get them into the tournament.
And
But
I think they're
that's
moving that way next year. There've been some discussions about bringing in some other sources to get the seating proper, which is the right way to go.
yeah. And before
Uh,
this thing gets totally off the rails,
yeah,
because that's when Midwest bracket comes, because that's when things really get off the rails for
that's
us.
right.
But let me run through the rest here. Or did
Yeah,
you? Yeah, you gave your. Did you give your Did you run through? You know what? I don't think you did because I went on my Wichita and Middle Tennessee State rank.
that's right.
So
Yeah,
why don't you? Yeah, why don't
I
you
was
run through your first round
I
there?
was trying to moderate. Last thing, I was listening to an interview with Greg Marshall, Wichita's coach, yesterday, and he had a killer line. He said the committee just lumps all these mid majors together to get us out, and he's kind of got a point with Dayton, Wichita, St. Mary's, and VCU catching these 7-10s. They're having these mid majors knock one another out to get these
Oh
brand new
yeah,
teams in.
you
But
see that every year.
you see that every year. So
And then Duke and Carolina are like in the same region once every 12 years.
yeah, it's funny how it works out like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the bracket. I have Carolina over Texas Southern. I have Seton Hall over Arkansas. I had Middle over Minnesota, but not by much. I flip flopped on that game for a while. I have Butler over Winthrop. I also mirror you with Wake and Kansas State over Wake over Cincinnati, but Cincinnati over Kansas State. I have UCLA by 75.5 points instead of 74 over Kent State. I have Dayton over Wichita, and I have non-directional Kentucky over Northern Kentucky.
All right. Yeah, I think we line up there. So for me going forward from the Sweet 16 to the Final Four, I have UNC beating Seton Hall, although I think everybody's saying UNC has like the easiest second round matchup, and I do not agree. I think
Mm-mm.
Seton Hall, I think they have the athletes that can kind of hang. Are they going to be able to score with Carolina? Probably not. Will Carolina win? Yeah, but I don't think it's a cupcake. I think that Delgado's going to hold his own down low, assuming like he doesn't get in foul trouble or
Right.
anything. He's going to hold his own, and the rest of them are just athletes, and I
Yeah,
think they can hang. So
it's
I
it's an
think that
interesting it's an interesting matchup with Delgado. It's almost Delgado versus like five Carolina players
exactly.
down low.
Yep.
He could
It's
do
gonna.
it, but yeah,
Yeah.
if he stays on the court, he is comparable to any big that Carolina's going to run out there. It's just a question of if he's not on the court, they're in trouble.
Yeah, and it is a little worrying that that's the second game in 2 days. So will he have enough gas? But you're right. That's a great way to put it. It's literally Delgado versus the front court of UNC. But
Yeah.
if he's on the court, like you said, like I take him at this point over almost any. Not many other centers in the country. Dude just eats boards and has played really well. Gotten way better on the offensive end too.
Hmm.
So keep moving forward. So like I said, I have UNC over Seton Hall. I have Butler over Middle Tennessee State.
Hmm.
I have UCLA over whoever the hell ends up getting out of that
By
other
how many?
game.
By how many?
That one is only by probably 27.
Yeah,
Um,
that's about right.
Cincinnati will D them up. If they play Cincinnati, I'll tell you this: if they play Cincinnati, that has got second half line written all over it. Cincinnati's going to come out, they're going to nut up and D them up. It's going to be like 30, 38, 35 first half, and then UCLA will just run them out the gym.
Okay.
And then I have non-directional Kentucky beating Dayton. And then going forward, I have the UCLA Kentucky rematch. I have UCLA winning again, and I
Hmm.
have UNC getting past Butler. So I have UNC versus UCLA, which would also be another great matchup in the Elite Eight. And I have UNC going to the Final Four.
Okay. So actually, our second round matchups are identical. Uh, but one thing I'll say here, so I have Butler over Middle Tennessee State, and then I have Butler over North Carolina. I have Carolina surviving past Seton Hall. I think that's going to be a really close game. Seton Hall has to make up for that egg they laid last year when they were coming in with so much hype, and then like threw up, almost had more air balls than makes last year.
I've
In a
never,
Did you remember that
I've
that
never,
late tip game against Gonzaga?
I have never seen a team that actually looked tired. You know, they always say like, oh, they play all these games, whatever. They looked gassed. Like you said, they were throwing up air balls. Like I watched the first 10 minutes and was like, this is over.
Yeah,
Like they just crazy, and it's a shame because I love that Seton Hall team, and they had a great run in the Big East tournament. But yeah, I'm with you that I think that no matter who they really played in the first round, assuming it wasn't anybody real crazy, I think that they're gonna come out and hopefully play well.
yeah, that was bizarre. So I hope they do the damn thing against Arkansas, and I think they will. But Carolina, probably too much. I have UCLA over whoever the hell wants to challenge them, and then I have non-directional Kentucky over Dayton. I have Butler over North Carolina. Butler is just one of those teams where like they are the opposite of Florida State. They're the all not airport team. Like I mean, this year they're a little bit more imposing, but they they just figure out ways to win. They beat Villanova twice. They beat them on the road. It's a really deep team. Keelan Martin is a really good player, and they have two really solid transfers that are finding their own in Savage and I'm blanking on the kid from Memphis.
Uh, uh,
Uh,
I
the
was gonna say
guard.
Pookie Powell, but he's on
No.
LaSalle.
Uh,
Avery
yeah,
Woodson.
Avery Woodson. Avery Woodson. I
Yeah,
think that they're really, really deep in a different way than Carolina, and I think Carolina is kind of susceptible to get tripped up against these teams that are really, really fundamental. Butler beat them a few years ago, neutral. There's not too much overlap on those rosters, but I think Butler could do it there. So that sets up UCLA against Butler, and I have UCLA taking down Butler and advancing to the Final Four.
yeah, and Butler's especially this year, like they have a lot of top RPI wins. They seem to get up for big games. So I think that I think it will be a better game than what people are saying.
Mm-hmm. And it does rob us of some pretty sweet rematches, but hopefully we'll get UCLA Kentucky again. So which brings us to the final region, the Midwest. So before we dive in, Kansas got the 1 seed. They'll play the winner of NC Central, UC Davis in the 116, Miami, Michigan State in the 8-9, Iowa State, Nevada in the 5-12, Purdue, Vermont in the 4-13, Creighton, Rhode Island in the 6-11, Oregon, Iona in the 3-14, Michigan, Oklahoma State in the 7:10, and Louisville, Jacksonville State in the 2:15 game. Real quick shout out to Jacksonville State because they're the Cocks and they got in, even though the Peacocks didn't. So we still have two Cocks in this bracket. We got some double penetration, which is good.
Jesus, I told you this. And I was talking about the bracketing aspect of this going off the rails, but I guess we're just going off the rails too. Okay, so I'll run through real quick. I know that we both don't have the stones to do this.
Don't. There's still time out. No, there's
still time. But you heard it on the Shoot Your Shot podcast first. Both Aldo and John would not be surprised at all if North Carolina Central is the first 16 to do it. They play, like 9 dudes, 8 seniors and a junior?
8 seniors and a junior. They won their conference tournament games by 35, 30, and 20. They're riding the covercraft. They got the momentum. They're going to get one game under their belt on national TV in Dayton against Davis. I predict, if not a victory, it will be one of those, CBS will cut away to this game with 5 minutes left.
Yep. No, I'm with you 100%.
Man.
Lenardi, I think, had them as a 14 seed.
The disrespect is real.
I was shocked that they were in Dayton. Let alone even a 16, but in Dayton. I couldn't get it. And honestly, I think – assuming that they win, now it's not a guarantee that they win because, when you go to Dayton, any of these teams can just kind of get up and play. But if they win, like you said, having that game under your belt, that's only going to help a 16. Mm-hmm. That is not going to hurt them.
Yeah, and Kansas is it sounds crazy. Kansas is the prime candidate. They don't have the imposing bigs that 16 seed struggles with.
They're not Carolina. You can't Carolina will not lose to a 16 because they just can't handle the bigs.
Jackson got suspended. They lost their last game. They got bounced early. Mason and Graham, awesome leaders, but there might be a little shaky ground there. And then you see the 16 seed coming in. Maybe Kansas peaks ahead at Miami and Michigan State. And I currently don't have the stones, but I've grown stones in 2 days before. Maybe.
Yeah. So with all that being said, I have Kansas. I have Kansas because
by 75.
Not by 75. I think it'll be a good game. I hope it's a good game. And
what time is that game?
I'll
look it up. I'll look it up.
I don't. Actually, I don't have it on my sheet here, but I do have that the Miami Michigan State game is at 9:20. So that sounds like that would be a 7 o'clock.
On Thursday or Friday?
The 17th, so Friday.
Oh,
yep. So it looks probably
action.
Yep. So 7 or 7:30, I would guess Friday.
That game is at 6:50 on Friday.
6:50. There you go.
Tune into TNT, make yourself a nice TV dinner, and watch that game.
Yep. And we're talking about this, and UC Davis is going to end up playing Kansas.
Yeah. If UC Davis wins, can you go back and crop out this entire segment?
Yeah, sure. The best part would be if UC Davis won and then they pulled the upset.
I'd still take credit because you get both teams on ESPN.
Yeah, that's true. In ESPN, you do get both teams.
You get both teams. That's funny. That's funny.
All right.
Okay,
well, moving forward. Well,
we spent way too much time on a 116.
Yeah, well, since this bracket's already going off the rails, I think this is a good time to mention our sponsor, Bai Antioxidant Drink. They, I don't know their slogan, but it should just be "Drink Bai." It's good as shit, and Dan Hurley loves it.
I'm literally holding a bottle of pomegranate Bai now. It is delicious, and I have drank Bai every game that I've watched of Rhode Island, simply because Dan Hurley does it too. It is wonderful stuff. Yeah,
I wanted to bring it up since Dan Hurley's in this bracket, and we're looking for a sponsor for Shoot Your Shot. We really want it to be Bai. I know that they, got people like Justin Timberlake and that old dude from Balls of Fury doing commercials. But I mean, if any of our listeners know any connections at Bai, let them know. We'll just give them as many plugs as they want. We'll go game after game and just mention Bai.
Bottom line, we're Bai guys. That's it. We're Bai guys.
Exactly.
That's it.
So after we're done with this bracket, I got one of each different kind of buy. I'm gonna set up a buy bracket, and we'll tweet that out. The winner of the buy bracket. I'm sure that everybody's more curious about that than the actual bracket.
And now, if as soon as you hear this, make sure you buy stock and buy because I mean it's gonna skyrocket.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Especially once they agree to be our sponsor.
They'll have to fight
All
off
right.
some other really big companies, but I
Yeah.
think they can get it done. Okay, we
Yeah.
have gone
All
completely
right.
off the rails, Mr. Basha. Let's get back to
Here
business.
we go. Okay, so Kansas will, I guess, beat maybe one of those 16 seeds. Then I
Maybe.
have, in all seriousness, I have Miami beating Michigan State. I have Iowa State beating Nevada. I have Vermont upsetting Purdue, and I do not recommend anybody else take this. But Vermont has been my team, my mid-major all year, and I'm just going to go down with the ship. They can't handle Purdue's size, but hey, they're like 29-5. They know how to win. They're a good team. Don't get me wrong. I
And their
just don't.
mascot,
The Catamounts, man.
Catamounts.
You can't go wrong with the Catamounts. Um,
Super quick Vermont point here for a second. They have four guys on their team who got awards in their conference. They have the player of the year, the defensive player of the year, the sixth man of the year, and the rookie of the year. They're super talented, got a horrible draw. That's simple.
yep.
That's simple.
Yep, the one team like I said, I was following them all year, and I'm looking at like bracketology and just I'm thinking they might be a 12 seed, but possibly 13, and I'm just looking around. I'm like, please do not get Purdue. Like don't get me wrong, I'm not high on Purdue, but they cannot. They play like sometimes they play their 6'6" freshman as their center.
Yeah. Who
Now he's like
look
a little
yeah,
yeah. He
who
looked
was shook in the championship game at home.
Lamb was shook in the championship game. Don't get me wrong; he's really good. He won Freshman of the Year. Will probably be, the Player of the Year going forward in the American East. But he's not going to be able to handle Biggie or Haas.
Hmm.
So it's just a really bad matchup. But I'm rolling with Vermont just because they're my squad. The most upsetting matchup just because there are two squads and they
Hmm.
put them together. But Creighton, Rhode Island, Dan Hurley, drink by everyone.
Just a bunch of bye guys on that
Just a
team.
bunch of bye guys. It's pretty much like they're getting a bye without Mo
Heyo,
Watson. Yeah, there
heyo.
we go. Yeah.
Nice.
Um, and then Boucherless, Oregon. I still think that they can. I think that's actually a good that they. I think they got a good draw with Iona. I think Iona's not as good as they've been over the past couple of years. So I think that
Hmm.
they kind of get another bye there that wasn't intended, but so Oregon there, I have Michigan, Oklahoma State. One of my probably more favorite, like you said before, actually, all the 7-10 games are really good matchups. This one's good too. Michigan with the great, terrible but great story of the plane crash where they kind of all came together and won the Big Ten tournament. They're real hot. And then I think Oklahoma State has just been, they started the Big 12 season real cold, but they turned it around. They have one of the best players in the country in Juwan Evans. So that one should be awesome. I have OK State winning, and
Hmm.
then I have Louisville over Jacksonville State.
Over the Cox. Damn.
Yes.
So I'll run through real quick and then I have a couple nuggets. Uh, you know what? I'm going to leave that 116 game blank for a second. That'll be a game time decision.
Jeez.
So we'll see. I have Miami over Michigan State. Michigan State going off the brand here again. Miami has dudes all over the place. They were a 3 seed last year. They are competitive. I think Miami wins that.
Yeah, real.
Yeah.
Sorry, real quick on that. Everybody, I was watching, a lot of these bracket shows and whatever, and people are like, "Oh, Kansas wouldn't want to see Michigan State," and I think that
Kansas
that's just
wouldn't want to see
complete.
Miami.
Exactly. I think that people are just so it's so based on the brand and that they have a couple good freshmen. They haven't done anything all year. They've won like one game here and then fell off again.
Mm-hmm.
Then one game, like they don't do anything for me. Michigan State. I'd be worried if I'm Miami. Miami played a lot of teams tough in the ACC and a lot of good teams, even some on the road.
Mm-hmm.
We were at the game at Cameron. Now, Duke went on some ridiculous, what was it, 30
It was like
to like
Yeah, it's like
five.
22-2 to start the half or
Yeah,
something. But
to
yeah,
start the
Miami
half,
was
but
up double digits.
they were handling them in the first half on the road in Cameron. So like this team is got dudes. Kansas, like you said, doesn't have an imposing big, and Miami doesn't really have a big either. They just got a bunch of athletes. So if I'm Kansas, I'd be a little worried for Miami is like a second round matchup.
Yeah, I mean, geez, between NC Central and Miami, Kansas really got screwed. um, so just go down. I actually have Nevada over Iowa State. These teams are really, really similar. And I actually give the edge to Nevada here. I think at point guard, I mean, obviously Monte Morris is one of the best. But Nevada has three guys, what's his name? Marcus Marshall, Cam Oliver, and Jordan Corline, who ran through the big what the hell ran through the Mountain West. These guys are really good, and I think the kind of the X factor for Iowa State is Burton, and Cam Oliver is better in my opinion. So I think that's actually a really really good pull for Nevada. They just have to out Iowa State. Iowa State there. I have Purdue over your Catamounts. It's a damn shame. Um, then I have in the all sadness game again. I have the bye guys taking down Creighton. I have Oregon over Iona. As I was looking through this bracket, if I had to rank these 68 games in terms of like enjoyment to watch, I think this Iona Oregon game is like dead last. I have almost no interest in watching that game. I mean, of course I will, but there's really nothing compelling there for me. I have Oklahoma State over Michigan, and then I have Louisville over Jacksonville State.
Okay. All right. So we're pretty similar there.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, 5-4 pod. So going down again. So I have Kansas. I do have them beating Miami. Like I said, though, I think that's a tough 8-9 draw. I
Mm-hmm.
have Iowa State over Vermont, and but I think I honestly would have Iowa State over Purdue anyway. I'm not that high on Purdue, and I think I just love Monty Morris. I think that he alone this tournament, in my opinion, will them to a couple wins.
Mm-hmm.
But I like you said, Nevada is a tough matchup for them in the first round because they are pretty much the same team and they do have the better big. But I'm going to go with Monty Morris there, so I have them also over Vermont. I
Mm-hmm.
have Rhody over Oregon. I think that the not only is it the injury, but I just think Rhode Island is good. I know that you think the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They are clicking at the right time. They clearly people thought they had the talent in the beginning of the year, and then they just kind of and even early they played well. They beat Cincinnati on a neutral. I think it was
Mm-hmm.
up in New England somewhere, so it's like kind of almost home. But they beat Cincinnati and they hung with Duke for a little while. So like they had some injuries, kind of struggled there in the middle of the season, and now are just on fire. So I think they're really talented. I think they can beat Oregon, and then I have Louisville over Oklahoma State, and that should just be a real interesting game. Oklahoma State kind of switched their defense this year to they started off pressing a bunch like Underwood always does, and then kind of backed off. But it'll be interesting because you have two like kind of coaches that do like to press, so
Mm-hmm.
that'll be a real interesting game. Then moving forward, this is where things just get really off the tracks. I have Iowa State and Monty Morris beating Kansas.
They've done it.
They
They
did
did
it.
it. Yeah, they did it once before.
They did it once before. I think they do it again. And like I said, I'm just kind of riding Monty Morris. I think he's clearly everybody knows that he's one of the best players in the country, but I don't think he gets enough love. His assist to turnover ratio, you have to look it up, is ridiculous. He went on this streak this at some point this year where in like 6 games the kid had like 2 turnovers. It,
Mm-hmm.
it's it, he just it doesn't get enough love for how just steady he is as a good point guard. And then here's where it really gets off the the rails. I
Mm-hmm.
have Rhode Island over Louisville, and then I have Rhode Island knocking off Monty Morris and company and getting to the Final Four.
Look at that. The bye guys all the way to the Final Four. I really like it. I'm fairly similar. I have Kansas/NC Central over Miami. I actually have Nevada beating Purdue as well. I'm really high on Nevada. Kind of how you're riding Vermont. I'm just riding these Mountain West teams. Um, Nevada has some pros. Cam Oliver might leave after this year for the NBA, so this is really it. I have URI over Oregon as well. I actually think Creighton is a tougher matchup for URI than Oregon because Creighton is a really high-powered offense, but also has Patton down low. Patton and Hassan Martin are going to go at it. Hassan Martin is a really, really awesome big, but Patton is very, very fundamentally sound. So that'll be a tough game. But if Rhode Island can get past them, I think their matchup with Oregon is really good, and it's helped by the Boucher loss, because with Oregon losing Boucher, now James Bell has to play the 5 and Brooks has to play the 4, which for most cases would be good. Against most teams would be good, but I think Hassan Martin and Bell like go toe to toe. They're basically the same build, and Martin's better offensively. And then just the whole group of Oregon guards against the whole group of Rhode Island guards. It's a really, really fascinating matchup. I hope we get to see it. I'll say one more thing on Hassan Martin before I move on from this love fest. He's a left-handed big, and that throws people off in the post. So I think that he's just going to have a monster tournament if they can get past Creighton. I have Louisville over Oklahoma State. I have Rhode Island over Louisville. I have Kansas over Nevada, and then I have Rhode Island beating Kansas. So I have Rhode Island in the Final Four as well. You can tell that we have watched too much basketball together, especially in the last week or so, where we have Rhode Island in the Final Four.
And we also have are trying to get Bai to sponsor us, so we figured that was also the best way to do it.
Yeah, and even if they don't sponsor us, I will continue to drink it. It's really one of the only beverages I buy.
Oh yeah, you're the oh man, and you're the pomegranate guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm setting up a bracket. I'm gonna find out what my favorite kind is and give them all a try. But as of right now, I love the dragon fruit. But we'll see.
I have the orange one in my apartment as well. I'll have to try that.
Is it the Clementine one?
Yeah,
it's
Clementine
excellent.
One.
It's I mean, they're all excellent, but that one was actually surprisingly very, very good.
Okay.
All right.
So we have our Final Four set. Is there anything that you want to touch on before we just get into the final stretch here?
No, I guess the only real thing is, real quick, what would be your three? What are your three favorite? We'll go first round games because those are the only things that we know for sure are set.
Okay, my three favorite.
I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but this is we'll get
cool.
We'll get your truest answer here.
Okay, my three favorite first round games are UVA UNCW in no order. UVA UNCW, Creighton Rhode Island, and I will go just for sheer entertainment value, Michigan Oklahoma State.
Okay. All right. Mine are also in no order. I have also the Creighton Rhode Island game. Those are just, like we said, been two of our favorite teams all year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with St. Mary's VCU. I just like both those bigs. I've been a big Mo Alley-Cox fan since he's been on VCU, and I think Jaquan Lewis is also a senior. They've both been real good, so it'd be cool to see them against a good veteran St. Mary's team. Two kind of different styles, like you said. And I'm going to go with, although I don't like the opponent really, I'm going to go with the Northwestern game just because it'll be cool to see them in the tourney.
Sure.
See what they got, but they play Vanderbilt, who it is interesting because they're 9 seed and honestly they have been playing well. I'm going to give them that. I don't think they should be a 9 seed, but that'll that's an interesting matchup, and more really I'm just picking that because it's cool to see Northwestern in the tournament.
Yeah. No, absolutely. All
right, you want to run through your final four first?
Sure. So in Phoenix, I have Duke playing Gonzaga. I have Gonzaga defeating Duke. I have UCLA playing Rhode Island. The bye guys runs out. So I have Gonzaga versus UCLA, and I have Gonzaga winning. Gonzaga is arguably the best team in the country. They're the deepest. They can come at you in so many different ways, and I think that they finally get the job done this year. So I have Gonzaga over UCLA.
I have Baylor playing Gonzaga in that first Final Four game. I have Gonzaga winning that game, and then I have Rhode Island playing UNC, and I have UNC winning that. I just think UNC always plays well in the tournament, in my opinion, and I think if they can get by UCLA, I don't think anybody on that side, even if I know we have Rhode Island, but honestly, I don't think either Kansas or Louisville or whoever you want to put through. I don't think. If they get out of that bracket, I think that they can get to the championship. And then I have Gonzaga and UNC. I have UNC winning it all. I hope the Zags can do it. I hope they at least get to the Final Four because I think that would validate their season because it's real tough to win the championship. But I think they need to at least get the Final Four to kind of have people shut up a little bit.
Hmm.
So hopefully, we have them both in the Final Four. Hopefully they can. I'd love to see them win it all. I think they're the most flexible team in the country, like you said earlier, which is great for the tournament. You got playing so many different styles. So hopefully the Zags can do it. But right now, I think UNC has been solid all year. If Justin Jackson was playing the way he was playing most of the year with their lineup of bigs, I just think they're a tough matchup for a lot of people. And plus, they have Joel Berry, who he was a gamer last tourney, so
Hmm.
you would think that he would do the same this year. So we will see. But I have UNC
Awesome.
right now.
Awesome. And I have one question to put you on the spot. When it all comes to an
Yes.
end in early April and they play one shining moment, who are you going to get emotional about when you see a clip of this player?
Oh man. Well, it's got to be a senior.
Hmm.
Um, I mentioned him before. If VCU would like lose a tough game, and I see Big Mo tearing up, I'm gonna tear up. He's been one of my favorite players, and usually usually you're drawn to like guards just from even we would go over who were some of our favorite college players over the years, guys that doesn't necessarily have to be like an NBA player, but we're just great in college. A lot of them are guards just because of the way the game is. Whatever, bigs
Hmm.
don't usually they don't score as much usually, and it's just the way it is. But he ever since he was at VCU, this dude is like I hope he makes the NFL. Like, cause it's crazy. The dude is like 4 feet wide. It's got the broadest shoulders I've ever seen, and just like dunks on people. Real athletic. So yeah, I'll go with Big Mo if they would lose a tough one, and if I see him crying, I'll probably shed a tear a little bit.
Got it. Got it. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I thought you were going to go with one player. Troy Copain will, will,
Troy, yeah,
will
he'll
be
he'll do it.
tough. Will be
He'll
tough.
do it. He'll do it for me too.
Mhm.
He's one of my. He's a lesser version of Monty Morris, I would say. He doesn't he like doesn't score, so that's why I don't think he gets the love. But the dude is just a gamer. He's hit big shots. I think he's hit like two buzzer beaters in the tournament, or at least one. I know he's hit.
Mhm.
Um, and a bunch and a couple others that I can remember just throughout his career. So he's just a gamer. He defends and yeah. So that's a good call.
Yeah.
He'll be tough.
Yeah. Copain stuff. And then just cheating here, kind of the entire the Wisconsin crew. They have kind of been instrumental in the storybooks
Yep.
of college basketball over the last 4 years. So Koenig and Hayes doing on and off the court stuff. So when the book
Yep.
finally
Yep.
closes on that career, that's going to be tough.
They both have done a lot for college basketball in general. I just remember, that Wisconsin run was not only great because I mean we both love that Wisconsin team, but they made that run so
Right.
much fun with the stenographer
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and then they used to like play Mario Kart. Like they just that whole group made that fun. So yeah, hopefully Villanova is going to be a tough matchup for them if they can get to the second round. But hopefully I do root for him and Koenig both like I said, did a lot for college basketball.
Yeah.
But it's what only one team can win. That's what makes the tourney great. So John, pre NCAA tournament, let it fly. Do you have one at all?
I'm going to kick it to you. I want to hear yours.
Okay, I figured. So this let it fly is brought to you by.
God damn it.
No, I'm just kidding. So mine is a life lesson to everybody.
Okay.
Um,
Just do your buy one, man. Just do your buy one.
my quick let it fly is life is important, but never ever take a new job
Nice.
that starts in March. You think you're doing the right thing, you know, advancing your life, advancing your career, And then you get to this week, and it's just a bad look to take off on Thursday and Friday. But you really want to, and then you're just miserable. So just I don't want to say that I know by experience, but I'd recommend that everybody stay put with your job until like April 8th, and then go get whatever job you freaking want. But until April 8th or whatever day it is, stick with your current job, and hopefully everybody takes off Thursday and Friday, because this first weekend is the best weekend in sports, in my opinion.
Very nice. Very nice. So my Let It Fly is a little different, but so this is the week when everybody pretends or doesn't pretend to watch college basketball, wants to ask all these questions and fill out their brackets and stuff. So this is really the culmination of the last 5 or 6 months for you and I, and it's really the beginning for a lot of other folks. So my Let It Fly is life after college basketball. That Tuesday after the championship game is the first Tuesday in like 5 months where I'm not watching a college basketball game. So I'm fielding a question to all of our listeners. Please tell me a hobby that I should take up with all this free time now. I tried to learn how to play the harmonica last year, and it lasted for about 2.5 weeks. So I need something with a little staying power. So I have so much free time come early April that I need some recommendations on what to do with my life until November.
Yeah, I'm sure you can find something better than that. But I do remember ever since we've been out of school, every first Tuesday after the tournament, I think I text you, so what do I do now?
Yeah.
But hopefully, we get these next 3 weeks, should be awesome. And we will hopefully cut another pod next either Tuesday or Wednesday before, reevaluate the first weekend. Look forward to hopefully some good Sweet 16 and Elite 8 matchups. And, my parting words to this bracket edition are, I hope everyone this weekend, I hope they all shoot their shot. And you know what? I hope that North Carolina Central can win for us. And, maybe if they win, we can get a few retweets, and maybe then Bai will follow suit, and everything will come together. So always remember, everybody in the tournament, shoot your shot. All right.
Wow, dude, that got out of control.
That was great, though. That's good, though.
No,
I thought it was awesome.
I thought it was good. That Midwest region, man. That was good.
I knew that one was just going to get out of control too, just because of the picks, and that's when I knew I was going to throw in the Bai thing. But it got so much better.
Yeah. So, dude, I literally am holding a bottle of Bai, and I was like, I'm going to sneak in just like one nice Bai joke. And then you started it, and I was like, "Okay, he's game. We're going."
I had that plan. I had that plan for like 2 days now. I was like, because you know why? Because I've been listening to the stupid CBS things, and every freaking episode they're like, SeatGeek.
Right.
They do that stupid like minute promo. So I was like, I'm just gonna do one for Bai. And
that was really funny.
Yeah,
that was good.
All right. Yeah, I'm not gonna probably cut it tonight, but I'm going to. I'll just let you know, because I don't know if you are gonna listen to it or whatever. But I'm going to. I'm gonna put the dancing song somewhere. I don't know where. I don't know if maybe I see we actually like flowed pretty well. Like, I don't know if I want to really break it up.
Right.
So I might just use that as like, I might keep the
beginning.
words. Like, yeah, I might just use that as the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
I think that'll be good.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah, I think it was pretty good. It was funny. So we're in business. I liked your on the spot question. I had to kick one back to you.
Yeah, no. Well, I thought that way I can get just because for that question, like, I wanted you to just kind of look at the games real quick and
yeah,
give me them.